Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and streamed on AACPS YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure that you read those if you have not already done so. At this time, please stand for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing after the pledge. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I had indicated, please remain standing. This is the last Board of Education meeting for the 2023 calendar year. Over the last 12 months, our school system has lost a number of our students and staff. I ask you at this time to please join me now in a moment of silence in their memory. Thank you. And so we are going to have the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Ms. Howe?
Would you like a vote, or do you approve it by consensus?
Consensus? We have consensus. Okay. Well, we're going to move on to the establishment of the agenda order. And I believe we do have a motion.
I move that consent item 6.04, Student Transportation Services Award of Contract, be removed from the board's agenda tonight to be rescheduled for a future meeting.
Second.
You have a second? And we have consensus? We do. Okay, so we need to establish the agenda order?
Yep.
So do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Consensus? We have consensus. Okay. Item 2.05, Student Equity in Action Spotlight. Very important. Mr. Lynn?
Nope, Ms. Corkadell tonight.
Oh, excuse me, it's Ms. Corkadell. Okay, Ms. Corkadell,
Tonight
thank
it's
you.
Ms. Corkadell. Thank you. Tonight, the board recognizes a sophomore from Crofton High School who is described as, quote, a kind and humble community leader. Joshua O. co-directs Kids Changemakers, a nonprofit organization he started with his brother while they were in elementary school when they were frustrated by the age restrictions that many volunteer organizations mandate. Their nonprofit allows volunteers of all ages to serve adults and children in and around the Crofton community. This year, Kid Changemakers is entering its 10th year serving and were recognized this July by the Baltimore Orioles as Birdland Community Heroes. Joshua closes resource gaps by directly addressing diaper poverty. He has donated over 200,000 diapers through the pop-up pantries. He successfully lobbied to end the diaper tax in Maryland with Senate Bill 316, which Governor Hogan signed into law last year, saving families $12 million a year. Because of these efforts, Joshua won the 2023 Prudential Emerging Visionaries Societal Solutions Award for his project, Fighting Diaper Poverty. He was honored at a ceremony in New York City, and his face was featured on a billboard in Times Square. Times Square. Seriously, who else can say that? Oh my goodness, that's incredible. He provides a fair, safe, diverse, and inclusive space for youth volunteers to come together to serve. Additionally, through grants and cash donations, Kid Changemakers has raised over $100,000 for food insecurity. Let's give, I got to stop and applaud that. It's amazing. Not just food insecurities are addressed, foster children and the homeless through its partnership with the Blue Ribbon Project and many other partners. Joshua leads service events, including school supply drives, diaper drives, and collects items for various organizations, including snacks, travel-side toothpaste, soaps, shampoos, hand sanitizers, toothbrushes, menstrual products, which he has collected over 75,000, and adult diapers, since Medicare doesn't cover the cost for incontinence briefs and are 5 times more expensive than baby diapers. He also organized sewing events and packing events. Most recently, he collected handcrafted scarves and hats for distribution in anticipation of our colder temperatures. While Josh stays busy organizing and leading these activities, he is also part of the school service club and is an active member of the AACPS service leadership team. He does this all while maintaining a 4.0 GPA and playing on the tennis team for Crofton High School, which is an amazing team, by the way. If you are interested in getting involved with Josh and Kid Changemakers, visit www.kidchangemakers.com or visit their Facebook page. That's www.kidchangemakers.com. Joshua, we are excited to highlight all the ways which you give back to the Anne Arundel County community and hope that this recognition brings even more participation and awareness to your organization. We are proud to recognize you as the December 2023 Student Equity and Action Spotlight. Congratulations. Come on forward. Who has joined you tonight?
My brother, my grandparents, and my mom and dad, along with Miss Few and Miss Fowler, who are my teachers and student leadership coordinator.
Awesome. Well, this is a copy of the script that I did, and we have here a wonderful certificate to add to your wall, because you've already got quite a few, along with this plaque. There you go. Kind of like that. So would you like to say a couple words?
Thank you for this honor, absolutely, and I'd like to thank my family, all the people that are coming here to support me, and want to wish everyone a happy holidays.
Wonderful.
Miss Ellis.
I just want to say this is such a well-deserved recognition, and we have someone special here tonight who very much envisioned what this award would be like, and I have a feeling is very proud to see the type of recipients that we have here. So I just had to point out, Mr. McGrath, great to see you, and I'm sure you're very proud to see this put into action.
Okay. We do not have any public comments on agenda items this evening, so we're going to move on to reports.
We're short break for pictures, Mr. Silkworth.
Oh, we need a short break for pictures. That's good. Mr. McGrath, come on up so we can see you. Come on.
Let me work with Joan on that, because it's not on here.
Okay, so we're back. We're back. As I had mentioned earlier, we do not have any public comments on agenda items, so we're going to move on to item 4.01, Krask report.
Good evening, President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. My name is Michelle Fidel. I am a sophomore at Chesapeake High School. My pronouns are she, her, and I am very grateful to serve as the Krask Secretary of Education. A huge thank you to Vera Harath from the League of Women Voters, Nicole Hill from the Anne Arundel County Board of Election, and Ralph Thomas from the NAACP Anne Arundel County branch for hosting voter registration drives at our high school in November. We had 243 students register to vote, and almost 100 applications were taken home to complete. What a success! Since the last update, Krask has held 2 meetings, one virtual and hybrid town hall meeting. During these meetings, we discussed student concerns, gave departmental updates, and began planning our next General Assembly. Right now, we are actually currently hosting our last Krask meeting of the year, which is a winter celebration. On December 9th, MASC held their executive board meeting at Crofton High School. Approximately 50 students from across the state joined Krask members in person or virtually to conduct MASC business. It was exciting to host and showcase the beautiful home of the Cardinals. Tune in to December's episode of Teen Talk, where host Zoe Prandy highlights the 100th anniversary of Glen Burnie High School. 100 years, y'all. This episode documents the history of Glen Burnie High, highlighting students and staff, and discusses the impact the school has had on staff, students, and the community. Congratulations to the students selected to represent Anne Arundel County for the 446th session of the Maryland General Assembly. Their names can be found on the slide. Anne Arundel County is allotted 10 students and 2 alternates. We are excited that 8 students from AACPS were selected, in addition to 2 students who attend private schools in the county. The December Krask newsletter is now available on our website, Brightspace, and on our Instagram at Krask_online. Congratulations to the Anne Arundel High School Wildcats for winning the Krask Cup for this month. Be on the lookout for the Krask poster hung around your school and scan the QR code to enter. Okay, so 'twas 2 days till break, and everyone couldn't wait. We wish snow could fall, so we hear Mr. Mosier call. As winter break is coming up fast, we would like to say to teachers, students, faculty, and staff, have a happy holiday. 2023 was really great, but see you next year for the next Krask update.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think we do not have a PTA report this evening, so we'll move on to item 4.03, the CAC report.
I was so excited that PTA was supposed to go in the middle of us. Such a hard act to follow every time. Good evening, President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. I am Jamie Herman Cugnay, representing the CAC. The CAC Chair, John Conwell, could not be here tonight due to a family commitment. The CAC held a virtual meeting on December 11th. We were privileged to hear from Vice President Corinne Frank. We discussed the CAC role in board policy with emphasis on bringing information from our community, other Maryland school systems, and stakeholders who may have addressed similar questions to you. We reviewed the list of board policies referred for review and expected timeframes for board consideration. We focused on 3 pending policies in our breakout sessions: student attire and personal appearance, educational equity, and eligible riders. We expect that these policy discussions will be finished shortly and will be referred to you. Our next meeting is virtual, and it is on January 8th. As always, we welcome members of the public to attend our meetings. If you are interested in attending, please email cacsecretary@aacps@gmail.com. On behalf of the CAC, I wish you all a joyous holiday season and a happy 2024.
Thank you. And so we're moving on to item 4.04, our SMUB report. Mr. Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. So as a student member of the board, I've made it very clear that one of my top priorities is to increase student awareness on what is going on at board meetings and to get more students civically engaged through advocacy. And at the beginning of this year, I launched 2 new initiatives, the monthly SMOB Minute and the SMOB Advisory Council, and I wanted to take a moment to update on both. The SMOB Monthly Minute has been running strong for 4 months now. Thanks to the communications and productions teams, I've been able to produce monthly videos that recap to students what the Board of Education has been up to, including updates on redistricting, new course approvals, and more. These videos can be found on AACPS's social media sites and are available in English and Spanish. Last Wednesday, we held our 3rd monthly SMOB Advisory Council meeting, where we discussed effective ways to advocate for change within the school system and various issues students felt needed to be addressed. The SMOB Advisory Council is composed of middle and high school students from North County High to Southern High to create a diverse representative council. And if you're a student who's watching and interested in getting involved, you can contact me via email. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to item 4.05, the President's Report. So I do have a few things to talk about. On December the 11th, Dr. Bedell, Dr. Tobin, and I, and many staff members had the honor and privilege to attend the Annapolis Town Hall meeting, which was held at the Wiley Bates Legacy Center. And I certainly would like to thank Monique Jackson and all of our staff, as well as Pam Brown, who gave their time to help facilitate the event. The best and most efficient way to solve problems is by open communication and collaboration. This event provided some opportunities that we must continue to do, and we must continue to do just that for the good of our students, schools, and community. Dr. Tobin and Dr. Bedell spoke on behalf of AACPS, and as always, they were very well represented and well spoken. I thank them for their leadership in this endeavor to help solve some of the issues facing the Annapolis cluster. And we urge all stakeholders to be present, get involved as other community groups step up and be present to work with all of us for the good of our students and community schools. And I think Dr. Bedell in his report may mention that as well. Second thing, on December the 13th, Dr. Tobin and I joined Dr. Bedell at Annapolis High School as we had the honor and privilege to surprise our Anne Arundel County and Maryland Teacher of the Year, Mary Kay Connerton. We had the opportunity to present her with a check in honor of her selection as Maryland Teacher of the Year. We certainly congratulate Mary Kay for all that she has done for our kids and all that she continues to do for our kids. She represents, in my mind, the greatness that we have in all of our teachers and staff. And I want to say absolute thank you. Thank you, Mary Kay. And then finally, for me, On December the 15th, I had the honor and privilege to volunteer at Sarah's House, which is located in Fort Meade. Sarah's House has been in existence for many years. Today, their goal is to provide shelter, warmth, and what a caring atmosphere to so many of our homeless here in Anne Arundel County. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Volunteer Coordinator Bruce Clopian, Director Kelly Anderson, PA Susan DeBoer and Reggie Simmons, and PA Supervisor Lisa Jones for their dedication and their support of our homeless. You know, many of us have a perception about a homeless shelter, and I'm going to suggest to you that your perception is really not the reality. We think of a shelter as a huge dorm with hundreds of cots and people sleeping on the floor in disarray. That is not what Sarah's House is. Sarah's House is a home for our homeless for a period of time during their lives when they can be warm, they can be well fed, and more importantly, they can access services needed to be able to get back on their feet. It was very clear to me, based upon my brief time at Sarah's House, that those who work there are some of the most caring people in our communities. They do what they do, not for the compensation, but for the joy that they find in helping those in need. And I will suggest to you that some of those in need are some of our students and perhaps even some of our employees. So for me, the good news, the great news is that Sarah's House, it's up and running and functioning as it should. The bad news is that they have a waiting list of over 500. And that was really, for me, not something I wanted to hear. Several of my colleagues, I believe, also volunteered that same day, and I thank them for that. I personally will continue to volunteer at Sarah's House, and I hope many of you will consider to do the very same. So that concludes the President's report. So we're going to move on to item 4.05, the Superintendent's report. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a short report tonight because of the budget recommendation. I will deliver it in a few minutes, but I do want to highlight a few things. First, as you mentioned, I also want to thank all of those who came to our community conversation about Annapolis youth and community violence last week. I have already received multiple emails from people within the community inquiring on what the next steps will look like. And I think that there is a sense of people wanting to collaborate to really work together as a cohesive community to serve in the best interest of the children in this community. There are some folks who've emailed me today. I have not had an opportunity to respond to you, but I will respond back to you. And please know that we are looking forward to continuing to have conversations. Most importantly, having these conversations directly in the community where we need to have the community so that accessibility is a reality for those families. So thank you. The other item that I really want to focus on is just around this letter that went out last week. There's been a lot of conversation about my letter last week regarding an incident at one of our high school basketball games. And I think it's important for me to really let everybody know that I want to be clear on this position, on where we should be. I know people say, well, what was the statement that was made? And I'll go ahead and share that with people. The statement that was made was a student was at a free throw line shooting free throws, and a student group chanted, "Who's your barber?" because of the student hair and the braids that this student had. So you basically utilizing culturally insensitive remarks as a chant. And it's just whether people feel that it was malice or no malice, whatever you want, however you want to take it, cultural insensitivity is cultural insensitivity. And we as a school district, we have standards that we have to adhere to. We want all of our students to be able to go into an environment and to be able to compete. and that there's common decency. We also want our students who are there to provide that home advantage. We want you to have home field advantage, but it's a way that we have to go about doing it. And I think that if we don't call these things out when they happen, it just spirals into much worse situations. I've been doing this work in athletics for a long time. I played Division III basketball, and I played in the deep South, in rural parts of the South, where I know I said the dirty South. I know. Well, hey, there's a lot of songs about that. So, but the point I'm making to you all is that I was that person that everybody would chant against. And I don't ever remember going into these mountains to play where I had people making discriminatory or remarks that were culturally insensitive during those 4 years of playing. I've also led as a superintendent for 6 years in a school district where we will not tolerate those types of behaviors. I have a former athlete in here right now that attended that school district who played at a high level all 4 years. But I can tell you this. I've been in 2 stints in 2 different districts in this state where we've had these type of things happen. And I'll tell you the other one. We had a rural team compete against a team that borders Baltimore City. State playoffs, basketball. It was an upset. And at the end of that game, as the seconds were winding down, the student group for the rural school, the high school, started chanting, "We have futures. We have futures." And I think about how insensitive that is. I sent out this letter and I get people saying, "Oh, he's blowing it up. He's making this seem a lot worse than what it is. He's making it racial." There's nothing in there that talks about anything racially. It talks more about how micro and macro aggressions show up and how we all have to be sensitive. If we truly are a district that's going to embrace this sense of belonging, then we have to call these things to the carpet. And it's not to tell our kids you can't chant, but to rather do our part to help educate them on what's appropriate and what's not. And so we will continue to do this. It's easy for people to say it's harmless. It's not harmless based on this email that I got around how it made that student feel, how it made that student parent feel. And we can't minimize these things as, oh, they're just kids. Yes, we all make mistakes, but we can't brush it under the carpet as if it didn't happen. We've had 2 incidents, and I've only been here a year and a half. We've had 2 incidents at a school where I've had to address these types of matters. People say, "Oh, you're soloing out this school." I'm not soloing out this school. We got other schools that's been involved in similar things across the county. This letter talks about what the expectation is at every single one of our high schools. This is not about singling out a particular community. This is about expectations around how we're going to conduct business in this county. And I will say this as I close out. There is a sportsmanship statement that is to be read out to everybody prior to the start of our games. That is an expectation that we have that should occur around how we are to treat people when they come into our schools. We have acceptable and we have unacceptable behavior language in our athletic handbook. 1, we should encourage surrounding people to display only sportsmanlike conduct, because that's what this is. And let me give you the unacceptable one that I took out of it. Laughing or name calling to distract an opponent, disrespectful or derogatory cheers, chants, songs, doing these types of things are not tolerated. So Superintendent Bedell is not making this stuff up, but what I can assure you is it will be enforced. It will be enforced under my leadership. And so we're going to work together. And there's a parent who sent something to me. Great letter, Dr. Bedell, but I don't know how well it's going to land, because if there's not educational opportunities for our students to understand how these things land on people, then you've kind of missed the point. And I actually agree with that parent, because I don't know that there was malice of ill will in that chant. But I also know that people said, well, this also happens at colleges. Yes, it does happen at colleges. But let me tell you what happens too. There are consequences that you don't see. There are students who have been kicked out of college games from attending games for the entirety of a season because of doing things that were insensitive and didn't represent what that university stands for. So I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to address that matter and to let our community know that we take all of these things seriously. And our goal is to just continue to work together so that we truly can embrace that notion of being a district that really embraces a sense of belonging. Mr. President, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Padell. And so we're going to be moving on to item 5.01, a presentation, superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2025 operating and capital budget, and we'll give him a moment to transition.
So let me just go ahead and put this out right off the top for everybody. I'm not going to be as animated as I was last year. My voice is struggling to recover from what I felt like I had flu-like symptoms over the last several days. So just bear with me on this. But I am really excited about what we're getting ready to present to you all as a school board and what we're getting ready to present to the community. And we'll go ahead and get started with this. President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, members of the board, elected officials, community members, family members, and most of all, our students. A year ago, as I presented my first budget recommendation to you as your superintendent, I talked about the potential for greatness I saw in our school system after just 4 months on the job. I spoke of what I believed it would take to truly make us great, helping all our students to see themselves through a resiliency lens, showing our employees they are valued in terms of compensation and working conditions, and increasing innovative approaches. 1 year later, my belief in our ability to be truly great is even stronger. In the last 12 months, we have accomplished things that some thought were unattainable. We have refused to be deterred by artificial limits and constraints. We have been transparent about where we have been, where we are, and where we need to go. And we have not been afraid to make tough and sometimes unpopular decisions as we strive to create an environment where every student feels like they can belong, grow, and succeed. We are better today than we were a year ago because of our people. I have visited approximately 100 of our schools and seen firsthand the remarkable work that goes on. I've watched students from ages 3 to 18 be challenged, inspired, and encouraged. Our school-based staff and all of those who support them are second to none. That's just the fact. We started our work last year by trying to address the most glaring issue I saw, the compensation deficit for our employees compared to other jurisdictions. I was clear then and remain steadfast now that if we don't show our employees that we appreciate them, they will take their immense talents somewhere else. We can't afford to have that happen. Our work should be about retention and recruitment, not replacement of great people who feel more valued outside of our school system than in it. So we were bold about the need for compensation enhancements, and this board backed us. We talked about it in every public venue we could, garnering support not just from our own employees, but from families, students, and the community. County Executive Stuart Pittman made compensation an integral part of his proposed budget, and the County Council provided equal support. The result was more than $79.5 million in salary and other enhancements in our current budget. They include a step increase plus a 6% cost of living adjustment for employees and an $8,000 raise in the starting salary for first-year teachers that moved us from 19th out of the state's 24 jurisdictions to 4th in a single year. The $2,000 bonus we included for special education teachers makes our first-year special education teachers the highest paid in the state. Our current budget also includes a 30-minute increase in the workday for teaching assistants, and the second straight year of a 10% increase for contracted bus drivers. That's the kind of partnership and progress we need to be great. And I am thankful to all involved in those and other efforts. A year ago, we were also able to provide 2 bonuses of up to $1,000 for our employees, using savings from a high number of vacancies some of those same employees were asked to cover. And in each of the last 2 years, we have provided a virtual workday for employees on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, allowing them more time with family without losing work productivity. I also promised that we would be innovative, and we have been. The 68 bus driver vacancies we had at the outset of the last school year was simply unacceptable. Students can't have a sense of belonging, can't grow, and can't succeed if we can't even get them to school. I challenged our transportation division to be creative in finding a solution and to remove some of the transportation inequities that have been built into the system. Using a new law that allows certain passenger vehicles to be used in lieu of school buses, we launched our alternative vehicle program last December. We opened this school year with 40 such vehicles that we now use to transport homeless students and those enrolled in non-public settings, freeing up those buses and their CDL licensed drivers to provide service to more students at more schools in our county. When our students attended their first classes this year, we had 0 bus driver vacancies and 62 additional drivers in training. We still have no bus driver vacancies today, and we are continuing to build the driver bench we desperately need to help ensure that every route runs every day. We have more work to do, but I want to thank our transportation team for moving us significantly forward. In sports terms, I felt like we were playing 3-on-5 full-court basketball last year. We made progress because of our amazing teams in human resources, facilities, food and nutrition services, transportation, and beyond. We refused to accept the deficits, even when the odds appeared long. We evaluated, innovated, and adapted instead of falling back on the mindset that we've always done it that way. As a result, we opened this school year in far better shape than a year ago. Classroom vacancies were reduced from 300 last year to 168 at the start of this school year, and they fell to 98 earlier this month. Operations vacancies went from 90 to 30. Openings in food and nutrition services dropped from 264 to 98. We're playing 5-on-5 this year. That's better for our students, better for our staff, and better for our entire county. Hold on. I take breaks here. The innovation extends to other areas of our system as well. It became clear last spring that the county could not fund our often asked for expansion of the BOE program to the 5 remaining clusters, still without it after nearly 9 years. So we went back to the drawing board. We reallocated central office and school-based positions and changed the staffing model so that the expansion could take place this year without additional positions or county dollars. I am proud that BOE now exists in every elementary school in our county, providing our youngest learners with an exciting and fun project-based curriculum designed to spark the inquiry we want to see in all students. As importantly, it provides a balance to planning time among all elementary teachers. To help meet the needs of our increasingly diverse school system, we launched the first dual language elementary program at Tyler Heights Elementary School in August. I thought our principal was here. Yes, thank you. Thank you for your eagerness to want to make this happen. I had a chance to visit those kindergarten and first grade classrooms recently to see students receiving instruction in both English and Spanish. What is being built there is tremendous, and it will be a model for the rest of our county. As I have said and will continue to say, we have amazing people in this organization. At least 10 of our educators and administrators are currently recognized as the top in their area of expertise by state, regional, or national organizations. I don't know of any other school system that can say that now, and I haven't seen that anywhere in my 24 years in education. As much as possible, we must also allow our educators the flexibility to use their innovative talents as they try to best meet the needs of students. Nowhere is that better exemplified than at Annapolis High School, where Maryland Teacher of the Year, Mary Kay Connerton, has pioneered the development of a wellness program for students and staff. That program has led to curricular work that has increased wellness opportunities for students and is a model for Anne Arundel County. Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller recently took part in one of those sessions and commented that she would love to see this scaled out to the entire state of Maryland. This is just one more area where our school system is leading the way. Our work over the last year also led to significant improvements in achievement. The proficiency rate on the state assessments administered last spring rose in 7 of the 8 assessed areas compared to the year before, led by a 10.1 percentage point increase in Algebra 1 scores. We also saw increases across the board in English language arts and in the elementary and middle school math assessments and in 5th grade science. In all, 89% of our schools earned 3 or more stars on the 5-star Maryland report card system under new baseline metrics put in place this year. That's nearly 10 percentage points above the state average. And we have more 4 and 5-star schools than any school system in our region. We are, as I continue to say, a very good school system. As I have also said, however, I'm not interested in being good. We can be great, and that's exactly what I want us to be. Right now, we stand in the middle of the pack among state school systems on most of our key indicators. We have to maximize the resources we have available to us to increase achievement while we enhance opportunities for students at all levels. I believe we will get even better as we finalize and implement our new strategic plan. Dozens of community members, staff, students, and others are busy crafting that plan as we speak, and we will receive more input from focus groups around the county before bringing it to this board for approval in May. It is important that our community, not me or our team, shape this plan. Most importantly, that plan must be about our students. I meet regularly with student groups, and just last week, I sat with our superintendent's teen advisory. One of our members said something that will stay with me forever. She said, and I quote, "We need to reinstate the desire for curiosity rather than having a focus just on grades." She's right. And doing that can make us truly special. This is where Blueprint comes into play. The Blueprint will continue to be front and center in our work because it is integral to everything we are doing. Put simply, it will change the face of education, not just in Anne Arundel County, but across Maryland. In this regard, I have an ask of everyone. Eliminate from our conversations any discussion of reluctance to align with Blueprint. We must embrace the law as it exists, even as we work to improve it. More than $27 million in Blueprint mandates are funded in our current budget. That funding has resulted in more resources to community schools in areas of our county where poverty is the highest. Strategically braiding community school funds with federal Title I funds, as well as existing general funds, has resulted in robust instructional and social-emotional programming that has created significant growth in student achievement at many of these schools, as reflected in the most recent Maryland Report Card data. The funding has also provided a career counseling program beginning with middle school students to be done in collaboration with the Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation and expanded dual enrollment opportunities with Anne Arundel Community College. There are blueprint constraints that have and will change the way we do things, but blueprint can be a huge plus to school districts, and it will be for us. I am also proud of the work our school system has done over the last several years to confront the looming end of federal and state grant funding designed to mitigate impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Addressing the ESSER funding cliff in this manner has allowed for the shifts to be less drastic as we have moved funding from the grants into our annual operating budget and maximize the number of worthwhile programs we are able to continue. Like all schools in Maryland, the full impact of that ESSER funding cliff that seems so far off in the distance in the last couple of years is staring directly at us. This is the final year of that grant funding. We have had difficult decisions throughout this budget process about what initiatives we can request funding for, what we can modify in some way, and what we simply must eliminate. Last year, we shifted $8.6 million in ESSER-funded programs to our operating budget to ensure their continuation. Those programs included our virtual academy, the only one of its kind in the state of Maryland to be a standalone school. This year, we received requests to continue $30.9 million in ESSER-funded programs. My recommendation shifts only about $7.6 million to our operating budget. We will seek alternative funding for some other programs, but some will have to be eliminated, and we may need to make requests for additional funding next year. We have said for several years that the intersection of ESSER funding, elimination, and increased blueprint mandates in fiscal year 2025 would result in painful decisions across the school system. That is our reality now. The process has resulted in the operating and capital budgets that I will recommend to you tonight. The process that has resulted in the operating and capital budgets I will recommend to you tonight has consumed thousands of hours on the part of hundreds of people. As was the case last year, we have emphasized the need to be prudent. Our cabinet members and budget team did not receive or consider a single request that was not needed. There were no wish lists from our department heads. Every single request would have moved our system forward and been better for our students and staff. However, budgets must be built on reality. ESSER was a vessel to help us cross the pandemic river. We have navigated those waters, but we will encounter more waves as we arrive on the shore where the educational landscape looks far different than ever before. As I alluded to earlier, the work we have done over the last year and leading up to this moment has focused our mission on three simple words: belong, grow, succeed. Our students and staff must feel like they belong. Only then can we help them grow, and only through growth can they succeed. Our reality requires us to continue to reimagine the way we do things as we move forward. That is what will drive us to the results we want within the fiscal limitations that exist. Like many school systems across the state, our projected student enrollment did not fully materialize this year. That, combined with an estimated $40.8 million reduction in federal aid due to the expiration of COVID-related grant funding, further tightens our constraints. The days of schools being flush with funds are over. We can no longer just think or even work outside the proverbial box. We must build new boxes as we innovatively confront the difficult challenges of increasing academic achievement, retaining quality employees, and addressing issues such as rising healthcare costs. None of this is easy. And as I have said to our union leadership and others, everybody can't get everything they want. That is the approach we took as we examined every line of the hundreds of pages of this budget, considering our priorities along with those put forth by this board. Our team began the final phase of our budget process by debating and discussing nearly $126.5 million in proposed departmental requests and programmatic enhancements. Considering them along with blueprint mandates, other required expenditures, and the ongoing need to provide compensation increases to our employees. My recommendation requests funding for just 14% of those programs and enhancements totaling $18.3 million. This is not because the remainder were unworthy, but because the fiscal reality demands that we simply can't do everything we want. We will fund other programs and initiatives we need to undertake by shifting money from other areas of our budget instead of requesting additional funding. In all, the operating budget I recommend to you tonight totals $1.71 billion, a $61.2 million increase over our current allocation when accounting for funding decreases in the areas I've mentioned. The 3.7% increase is the smallest recommended increase in 9 years. Nearly 61.5% of the increase is allocated to salaries and benefits, inclusive of health care for our employees. The compensation request is sufficient to fund a step increase or a step equivalent for eligible employees and a 3% cost of living adjustment for all employees. Between step increases and COLAs, funding these items this year would mean our employees will have received as much as 21% in compensation increases over the last 3 years. I have also continued funding for the $2,000 bonus for special educators to help attract top candidates in one of our most critical shortage areas. This recommendation continues to request funding to meet blueprint mandates. In addition to increases in the college and career readiness and workforce development areas that I mentioned earlier, there is $7.9 million to go towards the provision resources as the number of community schools in our district expands from 23 to an estimated 36. This funding will allow for better relationships between schools and the communities they serve and will also enhance social and emotional supports for students and families. We have invested $4.5 million for 35.9 positions over the last 3 years to provide additional social and emotional support resources for our students. My recommendation contains $3.2 million for 24.5 more positions to continue this work. The battle in this area is not waning, and we must continue to provide as much support as possible. There is funding in this recommendation for 8.5 school counselors, 8 school psychologists, 6 social workers, and 2 pupil personnel workers for that purpose. I want to be clear that this challenge is not one for us to address alone. Our communities and our city and county governments must do their parts. But there are places where we can step up, and they don't exist solely in the classroom. Using existing resources in the current year's budget, we created the Office of Mentorship Programs through which we are matching students with mentors. More than 40 central office employees are mentoring students and meeting with them regularly. We are working with the Annapolis Mayor, Gavin Buckley, and his team on a plan to provide city employees release time to do the same. We welcome the participation of county government and the private sector in this endeavor as well. Our students don't just need people to talk to, however. They need activities in which they can engage. In that regard, this recommendation contains $682,000 for the first year of a 2-year plan to launch middle school athletics programs in our county. This program would ultimately offer sports over 3 seasons, providing precious access and directly supporting the physical, mental, and social health of students. As is the case with our high school athletics program, to me the best in the state, the middle school program would offer sports free of charge to families and would provide students with meaningful opportunities to build relationships, develop skills, and further that sense of belonging that we talk about often. There is also a direct community benefit to this program because it will provide students with productive ways to spend their time after school. The sports seasons would also complement those offered by our high schools and the County Department of Recreation and Parks, so this is a win for everyone. We have a growing number of students who require increasingly diverse specialized instruction, and we must meet those needs. This has been an area of focus for me over the last year and something I've discussed with families and employees in almost every venue in which I've spoken. This is not just a budgetary issue, but an organizational one. 2 weeks ago, I talked about how we are reimagining the delivery of services at the Phoenix Academy and Mary Moss at J. Albert Adams Academy to better deliver instruction and supports for students. I will be addressing other systemic issues related to special education in the second phase of my reorganization plan that will go into effect this summer. However, we have a dire need for more resources in this area. My recommendation contains $4.7 million for 56.4 special education teachers, assistants, and occupational and physical therapists, including 12.5 positions as part of a new regional program to be located at Old Mill West High School when it opens in the fall. What I consider to be the premier facilities team in the state continues to enhance the educational environment for students across our county. We opened 3 replacement school buildings last fall and will open 3 new and 1 replacement building in August. My recommendation to you contains $12.5 million for more than 127 positions to staff the new Old Mill West High School and West County Elementary School, as well as $3 million to open the new Village Academy Public Charter School. We will also be opening a new building for students and staff at Old Mill Middle South as part of the multi-year Old Mill Master Plan. The $234.5 million recommended capital budget I am presenting to you tonight contains nearly $167 million in construction funding for the final 3 schools in the Old Mill Master Plan. A new Old Mill High School on the same property where the current school is located, a new Center of Applied Technology north on that same property, and a new Old Mill Middle North where the current Cat North is located. These are critical pieces to the success of this plan, which this board, our county executive, and the county council have generously supported in prior years. My capital budget recommendation also includes $32.3 million for building systems renovations, $7 million to continue to reduce the maintenance backlog, and $1.3 million to design a new school bus facility and lot. The bus lot project was recommended by Prismatic Audit, commissioned by this board, and is sorely needed to meet our growing transportation needs. Also included in the capital budget recommendation is $4 million for roof replacement projects, $4 million for additions to existing buildings, $3.5 million for athletic stadium improvements, and $2 million for security-related upgrades. The days, weeks, and months that lie ahead in this budget process will be filled with discussions about the worthiness of projects both inside our school system and outside of it. My job, and now this board's job, is to advocate for what we need as an educational entity, remaining fully aware that we are but one piece in a very large county puzzle. The county executive and county council will have many competing needs as this process moves forward. I simply say to everyone, be passionate advocates for our school system, but recognize the partnership that must exist for us to move forward as an entire county. I am reminded of a scene I watched play out in October at the county cheerleading championships at Annapolis High School. In a packed gymnasium full of the state's best cheerleaders and their supporters, team after team took to the mat to perform. Their routines were amazing. But what was also notable was the fellowship that existed between teams and their fans. As much as everyone wanted to win, and every team had their eye on the top prize, there was an incredible amount of collective support. What those in attendance saw wasn't just a series of individual teams, but a grand display of the power of relationships. In the end, the entirety of the competition was greater than the sum of its individual parts. That's what we need through this process. Advocacy for sure, but awareness that there's a greater good to be achieved. That's how we will move our school system and, most importantly, our county forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. So I might mention, and I may repeat it later, but there will be public hearing held on the budget Tuesday, January 9th at Old Mill High School at 6, and another public hearing on the budget January 11th, Thursday, 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. And also, I believe that copies, the fiscal year 2025 budget in brief, and copies of the superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2025 budget will be made available as needed. So once again, Dr. Bedell, thank you. How's your voice?
So it's a struggle right now. I want to thank our team, all of these folks back here. They've done an absolute phenomenal job of helping us to get to this point. We know there's a lot of work now for this school board to do before ultimately voting and forwarding this to the county. But I'm very appreciative of everything that you've all done. And President Silkworth, I just really have to acknowledge this. I asked my daughter to log on. She's here from college and she's a senior right now and is eventually going to become an educator without any influence from me. She decided this, but she actually came today because she's actually taking some education courses and she's going to be graduating in May, and she's here today. And hey, you just warmed my heart being here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. So we are now going to be moving on to item 5.02, Superintendent's recommendation of new school names. A little background, and that's pursuant to policy EG and regulation EGRA, set forth the procedures for naming school and non-school facilities, and in accordance with the policy and regulation, naming committees were established to recommend formal names for Old Mill West High School and West County Elementary. The committees have met twice, and public suggestions and comments have been solicited multiple times, and we are certainly happy to have the principals here at both schools. They will discuss the work of their committees and the recommendation forwarded to Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mark Bedell, and he will make a recommendation this evening on the name of each school to the board. Good evening.
So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Tonight we have with us Rachel Kennelly, principal of Old Mill High School West, and Alexis McKay, principal of West County Elementary School. They are here to go through the work that their naming committees did in formulating a recommendation to me. Following their presentations, I will provide you with my recommendations, which will then go out for public comment and be voted at your January 3rd meeting. I believe at this time, we will ask Ms. Kennelly to discuss her process first.
Thank you. Good evening, President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. For the record, my name is Rachel Kennelly, and I am the proud principal of what is currently named Old Mill West High School. I'm here this evening to formally provide you with information about the process by which the school naming committee arrived at a recommendation for the official name of AACPS's 14th Comprehensive High School, set to welcome students in grades 9 through 12 in August of 2024. Before I begin, I want to thank the members of the school naming committee for their dedication to this important step in what will be a rich history for our school. Their thoughtful consideration and shared excitement for the task at hand helped make the process run smoothly and efficiently. I also want to thank the community at large for their engagement and feedback during this process. And finally, thank you to Mr. Mosier and the AACPS Communications Office for their assistance in reaching the broader community, facilitating our surveys, and organizing virtual meeting logistics. Following this board's vote to approve Phase 1 of the redistricting plan, a public communication invited all stakeholders to share their suggestion for a school name for the new high school. In all, we received 114 responses, yielding 55 unique suggestions that met the criteria for a school name established in Board Policy EG and accompanying Administrative Regulation EGRA. Approximately 68% of the suggestions were submitted by parents and guardians, 13% by community members, 10% by students, and the remaining 9% by persons with undisclosed affiliations. On November 28th, the school naming committee convened at Old Mill High School, and our meeting was streamed live to the public via Zoom. At that meeting, the committee reviewed the survey data and was charged with narrowing the 55 suggestions to 5 finalists. The 5 finalists were chosen based on a number of factors, to include the number of times a name was suggested, and also committee members' discussion of less popular names that evoked a level of pride and excitement. Those 5 finalist options, Millersville, Severn, Severn Run, Veterans, and West, were again presented publicly for feedback via a survey. On December 12th, the school naming committee reconvened via Zoom, also streamed live for the public to view. At that meeting, the committee reviewed the second round of survey data. This survey requested that respondents select their choice for the school name from the finalists and offered an optional field where respondents could share a rationale for their choice. This survey collected 949 responses. A summary of results was presented to the school naming committee for consideration and discussion. Those results indicated that 257 respondents, or 27%, favored Millersville. Common themes in favor of this name included the elimination of confusion with Severn School and that it would be named for the city or town in which the school was located. Common themes opposed to this name included that not all of Millersville is zoned to attend our school, and there are other communities besides Millersville that are. 182 respondents, or 19%, favored Severn. Common themes in favor of this name included that it would be named for the city or town in which it's located. Common themes opposed to this name included that it would be too similar to the Severn School and that more communities than just Severn will attend our school. 313 respondents, or 33%, favored Severn Run. Common themes in favor of this name included the connection to the history and geography of the area and that the Severn Run touches almost every community in our attendance zone. Common themes opposed to this name is that it was not the name of the city or town in which the school is located. 113 respondents, or 12%, favored Veterans. Common themes in favor of this name included its strong name that respects the military families in our area. Common themes opposed to this name included that it is not located on Veterans Highway and that it is not located on a military base. And finally, 84 respondents, or 9%, favored West. Common themes in favor of this name included that it was geographical and unoffensive, and some respondents asked that West County be the consideration if it were to move forward. Common themes opposed to this name included that it is not the westernmost high school in the county, and in relation to the entire county, it is more centrally located. The committee engaged in productive and respectful discussion, taking into consideration not only the quantitative data, but the qualitative feedback as well. It was noted that a major consideration for both Millersville and Severn was that it was named after the town in which the school is located. And so it was clarified for the committee that our mailing address is indeed Severn, not Millersville. Because the Severn School already exists, the committee felt naming our school Severn would be too confusing on too many occasions. However, the Severn Run is a 9-mile headwater stream of the Severn River, which can be found throughout our attendance boundary, and the Severn Run Natural Environment Area also envelops our community. For all those reasons, and in alignment with the most popular choice as demonstrated by community survey results, the school naming committee unanimously decided to present one name to Dr. Bedell for his consideration. Late last week, I forwarded our recommendation that our school be named Severn Run High School. This concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have at this time about our process before Ms. McKay discusses the process used by her school's committee. Thank you.
Seeing no lights.
Good evening, President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. For the record, my name is Alexis McKay, and I am the very excited principal of the currently named West County Elementary School. I am here this evening to formally provide you with the information about the process by which West County Elementary School Naming Committee arrived at a recommendation for the official name of AACPS's newest elementary school. I cannot wait to open the doors to our school, which will have students from pre-K 4 through 5th grade. I want to thank the members of the school naming committee for their time and dedication to naming our school. Our school naming committee included 4 parents, the Arundel Cluster CAC representative, a community member, and the principal's secretary. Their collaboration, reflection, and honest discussion is much appreciated. Thank you also to Mr. Mosier and the AACPS Communications Office for their assistance in reaching the broader community, facilitating the surveys, and organizing virtual meeting logistics. Following this board's vote to approve Phase 1 of the redistricting plan, a public communication invited all stakeholders to share their suggestion for a school name for the new elementary school. In all, we received 143 responses, yielding 26 unique suggestions that met the criteria for a school name established in Board Policy EG and accompanying Administrative Regulation EG-RA. On November 29th, the school naming committee convened at Arundel High School, and our meeting was streamed live to the public via Zoom. At that meeting, the committee reviewed the survey data and was charged with narrowing the 26 suggestions to 3 to 5 finalists to send forth for public comment. The committee decided on 4 finalists. The 4 finalists were chosen based on a number of factors to include the number of times suggested and also the committee members' discussion. Those 4 finalist options, Conway Elementary, Little Patuxent Elementary, Patuxent River Elementary, and Two Rivers Elementary, were presented publicly for feedback via a survey. On December 13th, the school naming committee reconvened via Zoom, also streamed live for the public to view. At that meeting, the committee reviewed the second round of survey data. This survey requested that respondents select their choice for the school name and offered an optional field where respondents could offer a rationale for their choice. This survey collected 689 responses. A summary of results was presented to the school naming committee for consideration and discussion. Those results indicated that 40 respondents, or 6%, favored Conway. Common themes in favor of this name included its historical significance to the area, to include it was the name of a family and railway station. Common themes against this name included, if it is a family name, we would need to research the origins to ensure the family's views were in alignment with the actions, vision, goals, and standards of AACPS, as stated in the regulation EG-RA. And some did not want to name the school after a street name. 79 respondents, or 11%, favored Little Patuxent. Common themes in favor of this name included that it is more inclusive of the entire school population, honors the history of the Little Patuxent River, and that it's a cute name for an elementary school. Those not in favor of that name found that it sounded diminutive or negative. 76 respondents, or 11%, favored Patuxent River. Common themes in favor of this name included that it would be inclusive of the entire school population, pays homage to the farms and those living in the area prior to the Two Rivers community, and the importance of the Patuxent River. Common themes against this name included that there are several other schools in the state with the name Patuxent in them, and that it would be difficult for young children to spell and say. Some adults too. So, 494 respondents, or 72%, favored Two Rivers Elementary. Common themes in favor of this name included the connection to both the Patuxent River and Little Patuxent River, which runs through the area of the school. In addition, the school is adjacent to the Two Rivers community, where the majority of our students live. Those not in favor of this name noted that it is not inclusive of the whole student population. The committee engaged in productive and reflective discussion, taking into consideration not only the qualitative data, but the public comments as well. It was noted that a major consideration for Conway Elementary is that it is a family name, and we could run into difficulty in the future with naming a school after a person or family. The Little Patuxent and Patuxent River names were discussed to be very hard for young students to say and spell. The committee discussed that this is their school and they should be able to say the name easily. Two Rivers Elementary name takes into account both the Patuxent and Little Patuxent Rivers, thus honoring the history of the area. In addition, it is easy to say, and it is at the entrance of the Two Rivers community. For those reasons, the school naming committee unanimously decided to present one name to Dr. Bedell for his consideration. Late last week, I forwarded our recommendation that the school be named Two Rivers Elementary. Thank you.
Thank you both. Mr. President, at this time, the superintendent recommends that AACPS's new high school be named Severn Run High School, and our newest elementary school be named Two Rivers Elementary School, of which we will ask the board to take action on after further engagement at our next board meeting.
Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. Both schools are in my neck of the woods. And I want to thank the committees for their work, for everyone who participated, and because that's a critical piece of this, is everyone's heard. And someone who grew up in the area, I absolutely respect the work of the committees and all the input, and I will be supportive of the communities, but Little Patuxent really warmed my heart. I would have loved to have seen that. But anyway, thank you, everyone.
Okay, Ms. Corkadell.
I just wanted to thank all the committee members and congratulate you both for being principals in new schools. It sounds exciting, but I know, having walked that walk at Crofton High School with their former principal, I got to say that you guys have a lot of work ahead of you, and there's a lot of decisions going on in the background that will take up your time to prepare for that opening. And so, but once again, thank you very much for making sure that the process was well adhered to. And from what I'm understanding, everybody felt that their voices were heard. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to the big moment here coming up in a few short months.
Well, thank you so much. Once again, a reminder that the recommendation for each school name will be posted for public comment. Comments received will be provided to the board in advance of the January 3rd, 2024 meeting, at which time the board is scheduled to adopt formal names for the schools. Thank you both so much. Thank you. We greatly appreciate it. So we're going to be moving on to some award of contracts, item 6.01 to 6.03.
Can I move to bundle those,
You
please?
certainly can. Do I have a second? Okay, consensus? Okay, so, Dr. Riddell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of contracts under consent items dotted 6.01 through 6.03.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay. Moving on to item 7.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Bedell.
Mr. President, the superintendent recommends that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and/or appointed as discussed in executive close.
So moved.
Any discussion? Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
and Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay. Item 7.02, we have a policy revision on its third reading, school bus maintenance, code EAF. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our third reading on school bus maintenance. The administration is requesting that the board take action as a result of the third read. For this policy revision, we will have Grace Wilson to present to the board.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Good evening, President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, and members of the board. I'm Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist for the school system. Policy EAF, school bus maintenance, is before you this evening on third reading. The policy was last revised in June of 2012 and is being updated to account for the passage of House Bill 492 during the 2023 Maryland General Assembly session, which allows us to operate for school vehicles for a period of 15 years rather than 12, unless the vehicle fails to meet applicable school bus and motor vehicle safety standards. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this policy.
Ms. Schallheim.
I don't have questions, but I have a motion at the appropriate time.
Seeing no other lights, Ms. Schallheim.
I move that we adopt this policy as written, taking into account style and formatting.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, so we're going to be moving on to item 7.03, policy revision and classification of fund balances on its second reading. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, President Silkworth. Again, I'm Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist.
Walking a little too slow, isn't it?
All right.
Matt Stansky, Chief Financial Officer.
Policy DBK classification of fund balances is before you on second reading this evening after being posted for a 30-day public comment period. The policy provides authority, guidance, and limitations for determining the classification and limitation on the use of board fund balances. One comment was received during the public comment period, and that was included in your meeting materials for this evening. Based on the public comment received, Mr. Scansey and I are recommending 5 amendments to the policy, which were shared with you in advance of the meeting. We'd be happy to speak to these amendments at the appropriate time and answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Schallheim.
Yes, just a couple of comments and a very quick question. Firstly, I think it goes without saying, let's just say it again, that I'm delighted that we're updating this policy. I think that the policy committee produced a pretty fine document. I think that with the public comment received, this document was able to be elevated to an even better work product. So at the appropriate time, I do have a motion for that. I do have one question, though, related to the feedback we received from the person who made the comment. Is it
just to understand, only governmental funds can be classified as
So let me-
non-spendable,
let me
restricted,
try to
committed,
clear that
assigned,
up.
and unassigned.
Yeah, yours truly misread the question, and so did not provide a clear response.
Got
So
it.
we have governmental funds are classified as major governmental and non-major governmental.
Okay.
And so both are considered governmental, and both, yes, are included in the classification. So it is only governmental. I thought we were discussing a specific, I saw the word non, and so it was just a poor job interpreting the question. So thank you for the opportunity to clear it for the record. Yes, only governmental funds.
Thank you. And has that revised response been given to the question?
It will be.
Thank you so much. Yeah, delighted to see this move forward. Thank you. And at the appropriate time, I do have a motion.
Okay, we have some other lights. I think Miss Ellis was first, then Ms. Frank and Dr. Tobin.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone involved in the process. This is what public engagement can often be helpful. And I want to thank you, Mr. Stansky and Ms. Wilson and staff for receiving the comment, answering questions, and reacting appropriately. This has been very productive for the policymaking process. Thank you.
Ms. Frank?
Yes, thank you. And thank you again, Ms. Wilson, for your time in answering a lot of the questions. And even though it was one public comment, boy, it was quite a lengthy one. So I do appreciate all the time that you've taken with. There was one question that I had asked that I don't know that I heard if it was answered, and that was just specifically to the healthcare piece of this and ensuring that we were able to have language that would allow us to transfer appropriately.
Yeah, I don't. Language in this policy is not necessary. What we do and what we are doing here in a couple agenda items is we've assigned fund balance to the healthcare fund, and then through the appropriation process, your approval, and then obviously the county executive and county council approval, we can then transfer balances from the general fund to healthcare fund.
Okay, and then nothing in this policy is going to give us any sort of red tape.
It will not.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Dr. Tobin?
Thank you. Yes, I add my thanks to Ms. Wilson, Mr. Stansky, and others for your response to what was a very complex, but I think helpful set of commentary that we got. One additional question I had, Mr. Stansky, you and I had discussed this, but it's one of those things I think sometimes is helpful for the public to hear. In the policy, there is reference to the superintendent's ability to designate someone to assign funds. Could you just say a little more about the intention behind that? Because obviously there was a statement that there was a sense that this is important for the superintendent to have this ability.
So really the assigning of fund balance only happens once a year. And it happens typically in the August-September timeframe once the books are getting closed out and the audit's coming to an end. And we just felt that since I've been here, the superintendent's always been the individual who has assigned fund balance. But we felt having that flexibility in the event the superintendent was unable to perform that function, that somebody, that he or she could designate somebody to perform that function. And again, simply an assignment of fund balance is just signaling an intent at some point to use that fund balance for a specific activity. It will any assigned fund balance to be actually used does have to go through the appropriations process, which involves board vote, county executive approval, county council approval.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Ms. Crocodile?
Thank you. I apologize. I did not have a chance to send over any questions in advance, but I believe you guys probably are able to answer them. In section C, the very last paragraph, because I guess the numeration would be new 5, old 7, right? Is that correct? We're striking out annual operating expenditures and replacing it with general fund revenue. Matt, would that affect an ability if we had a grant, for example, and the grant allows us to work in, let's say, two budget categories,
Mhm.
and those dollars are appropriately assigned. And then we figure out that we would like to have some of that money carried over in a different bucket. The general fund, does that affect any grants or any carryovers of allocation or federal dollars?
No, this language does not, Ms. Corkadell. Again,
And
any
this-
of transfers like that follow the appropriations process. So I feel good that this language would still give us that flexibility that we currently have.
And so I have to ask, that, I mean, I saw Ms. Sutherland's, testimony and everything, and I did get a chance to read through it. I guess, logical and everything else. I guess I'm kind of wondering why we started with annual operating expenditures and landed in general fund. Could you kind of go over that? Because I felt that the annual operating expenditures statement was more reflective of what our intent was. If you could just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there isn't that much difference, quite frankly. And typically, to the individual who wrote in, to their credit, typically fund balances are measured against revenue and not expenditures, because you may have a year where your expenditures are abnormally high or low, and tying it to revenue allows that to adhere to the volatility you may see in revenue. But we also see it tied to expenditures. That's kind of where we initially started. But after reading the comments, circling back with Ms. Wilson, doing some additional research, we decided that the comment was worth an adjustment here on the revenue side. And I think it's worth mentioning, right? Like, we have the 30-day comment period for this process to play out the way it has, and I think somebody alluded to earlier to make the policy better than when it was originally drafted. And so I think we have that here.
So based on that, if we're doing revenue based, are there any anticipated encumbrances to our process that would be imposed if, let's say, we went into another, like a recessionary period, or, because those collapses tend to happen over multiple quarters, and they're never in alignment with our July 1 to June
Right.
30th, right? You got the September bubbles and the March bubbles typically. And so by assigning it now to revenue only, does that diminish our abilities or grant the council or the county executive any additional authority or input that they would not previously
No,
have?
it does not. The assignment process still resides with the superintendent, and then any actual implementation of that assignment follows the traditional appropriations process that we follow now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Ms. Schauheim, I think you have a motion.
I do. I move that the board accept the recommended amendments to policy DBK classification of fund balances. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Ms. Howe?
Can those be posted so that the public can see what the amendments are?
Yes, per your board
Okay.
policy BF.
I mean,
any substantive change.
Like now or
Oh.
no?
Any substantive changes will be posted on the website through your third reading for an additional public comment period.
It's on board docs right now publicly, and it will be following that process.
Okay, any other comments? Ms. Howe?
Ms. Schulheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin? Aye. Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Who seconded that?
Okay, we're going to be moving on to item 7.04, policy revision, educational equity on the first reading. Ms. Wilson,
Again, for the record, Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist. This is the first reading for Policy AF, Educational Equity. The policy establishes an educational equity policy to ensure that AECPS has procedures and best practices in place to provide for educational equity and eliminate obstacles to accessing educational opportunities for all students, and was revised May 20th, 2020. The Code of Maryland Regulations 13A010604, Educational Equity in Maryland, requires that local school systems review their educational equity policies and regulations at least every 3 years. As such, this policy was due to be reviewed this year. Staff reviewed the policy and did not have any recommended changes with the exception of the addition of legal references. We are recommending that this policy be reviewed by the full board in compliance with that COMAR regulation. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Any? Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. So I'm on the policy committee. I have seen this, and we had some discussion in the policy committee. No changes were recommended at that time, and I am not currently prepared to make any or offer any amendments. But I did bring up one piece that I'm a little concerned about that may consider something for second reading. But in the issue, our policy states, the promise of public education is for every child to succeed in school and life. And then we further go on to say the board is committed to fulfilling this promise. It's very aspirational, and it's certainly what we all want. But our promise is to provide the opportunities. We obviously cannot guarantee outcomes because of, obviously we all know there are a variety of factors that impact student success, many of which are outside of the school. So that language just brings me a little bit of concern. If you would, please, Ms. Wilson, go ahead and share what your thoughts were on.
Yes, so this language, the promise of public education is for every child to succeed in school and life, is frequently used at the federal and state level when referring to public education. This is the aspirational goal of what we're trying to achieve through public education, and that's why it's stated in this policy.
Right, and I appreciate that background. It still brings me a little bit of concern to have it written in policy, but I just wanted to bring it to light for everyone who was not there in policy committee. The discussion we had. Thank you.
Of course.
Ms. Corkadell.
Double hit. Thank you, President Silkworth, and thank you, Ms. Wilson. My only ask is, it's been a few years, and when this policy first was adopted, and it's by law, and we beat the deadline, we were one of the few who managed to work through this despite the pandemic hitting us. If I recall correct, we did have at some point a document that stated what we were required to include by law. And that was incredibly helpful. And I don't know what I did with it. And I don't know if it's even still a document in the system, but it would be kind of cool to see what language is required of us and how we've interpreted it, just to make sure that as we go through, one of the purposes of this law is to reassess every 3 years and say, is there more in policy that we need to do to well support the equity initiatives? And likewise, are there aspects of it that, may not best meet our need? That would be great. If it's not overly burdensome.
Of course not. That language is contained publicly in COMAR 13A010604 for anyone who's listening who would like to look it up. But I'd be
what is it?
13A010604, and I'd be happy to share it with the board as well.
Yep, I can look it up in my reference book at home. I will just comment to Ms. Ellis's point. that it sounds more like that piece of issue is more of a purpose. And maybe that helps solve the problem, just on a total off the top of the head.
Your
land on
issue
the
statement
table.
is where you are describing the legal background of why the policy is put into place, which would.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, but I'm just saying in general, it sounds like if this is the aspiration and this is kind of what it is, it's sort of its purpose. But it's something definitely worthy. I hate making Panglossian statements that, put us in spaces where we shouldn't be. But I understand the federal references to it. But I will look forward to seeing any amendments there. And then the only other thing I guess I would like to ask is amended, unamended. Is there an intent of the superintendent and his staff to reevaluate the regulations and make sure that they are still well meeting the need?
Yes,
Because we did adopt and regulate this we adopted this in May of 2020, and then the regulations followed for implementation of the upcoming school year. So, and that was a weird space to be in education. So I was just wondering if there was an intent there.
Yes, when staff reviewed the policy, we also reviewed the accompanying regulation at the same time. The policy committee was provided with a copy of the recommended changes to the regulation. There are 2 clarifying changes, and be happy to share them with the entire board.
Okay, great. Yeah. I mean, our committee does great work. I totally trust it. I was just wondering if that was going to also be the followed implication. Thank you guys so much, very much for everything. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you. This policy will be posted for a 30-day public comment period following
Thank
this
you.
meeting.
So moving on to item 7.05, it's an action item, second quarter operating budget supplemental and fund transfer for fiscal year 2024.
The superintendent recommends approval of the second quarter operating budget supplemental and fund transfer for FY 2024 to be submitted to the county council. For this presentation, we will have our staff present.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Mr. President, for the record, Matt Stansky, Chief Financial Officer. I need a break.
Good evening, Melissa Kamel, Senior Manager of
It's been
Budget.
a long couple months. All right. So before you today is our traditional second quarter transfer. We are asking for a significant increase in revenues in almost every category except county government. We'll walk you through this first page. First is we're looking for $13.5 million in increased authorization in federal grants. We have about 13 grants, which is later in your exhibit, to implement a variety of programs from our Grow Your Own program to Maryland Works, which is expanding our apprenticeship programs, to our comprehensive support and improvement grant, which gets additional Title I resources to our neediest schools. So $13.5 million in federal grants, slight increase in state revenue, about $491,000. This is, we're asking for increase in authorization for our Judy centers, as well as a Ready for Kindergarten grant. So that's good news on that front. 4.3 million in local revenue. This is a couple places. So 1.5 million in the unrestricted budget. Obviously with higher interest rates, one of the few positives of that is additional interest income on the funds we have in the bank. And so we're authorizing an additional $1.5 million to be transferred into the fixed charges state category for healthcare to help with the healthcare fund balance issues that we're currently facing. We're also remaining dollars there are increases in our projection around employee and retiree contributions to the healthcare fund. So we are seeing increases there, which is good. Next is over $12 million again into the healthcare fund, unfortunately from the healthcare fund balance. So given our current projection, we are projecting to have to use an additional $12 million in the healthcare fund balance. It'll still remain positive. We're going to look again in fourth quarter to see if we can't increase that appropriation so we don't have to use as much. But right now we're projecting to have to use an additional 12. So we're asking you for that authorization as well. And then finally, we are asking for $14 million to be appropriated from our general fund balance to go towards the following things. So starting at $5.5 million, again, to go into the healthcare fund, that gives us a total of $7 million that we'd be transferring into the healthcare fund. We are asking for $5 million to help open the new schools, the West County Elementary and the Old Mill West High School. This money would be spent on one-time things, startup funds for supplies, things of that nature. This board adopted a new literacy program at the last meeting. We need some startup money to get that up and running. So we're going to ask for $2 million there to get that up and running. We also need, we're requesting $1 million to upgrade both our security cameras and our security radios. Some of the radios we have now, they're not making the parts to fix anymore. And so we need to just get rid of those radios and get ourselves some new radios. So we're going to be using cameras and radios. So $1 million for that. And then finally, this board also heard a presentation from Dr. Bedell on the Mary Moss, J. Albert Adams, and Phoenix Academy, reimagining. And we are looking to use one-time cost to upgrade those facilities at $625,000. So that's a synopsis of the 14 million in that line. So all in, we're asking the Board of Education tonight to authorize an additional almost $45 million. Obviously, from the fund balance standpoint, it's one-time costs and, the additional grant funding, which is always welcome news. So with that, Mr. President, happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'm not sure who was first. Ms. Corkadell.
I just want to thank the staff for the comprehensive breakdown at the appropriate time prepared to motion.
Michelle Hahn.
Yes. Of the list of the 5 things, what was the very first one before the 5 million?
Oh, $5.5 million for additional contribution to the healthcare fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thanks for your work on this and your team.
Okay, seeing no more lights, Ms. Corkadell, you have a motion?
I move to adopt the recommendation of the operating funds.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, so we're going to be moving on to item 7.06, Public Address System Replacement, Park Elementary School. And I believe we have a motion. Ms. Frank.
Thank you. For the reasons stated by the superintendent and included in our meeting materials, I move that the Board of Education rescind its previous authorization to award contract number 23CN-151-023, Public Address System Replacement at Park Elementary School to CT Electrical Corp. in the amount of $380,000 and instead authorize the award of contract number 23CN-151-023 to CT Electrical Corp. in the correct amount of $400,000. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay. We have a review item 8.01, monthly financial status report. Any comments, concerns? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next board meeting will take place on Wednesday, January the 3rd, 12 o'clock here in the boardroom. Policy Committee will be meeting on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. It'll be a virtual meeting at 3 o'clock. Budget Committee, January 16th. 12 p.m. virtual. Equity Committee on Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, 12 p.m. virtual. And to remind everyone about the two public hearings about the budget, Tuesday, January 9 at 6 p.m. at Old Mill High School, and Thursday, January 11 here at the boardroom at 6 p.m. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our meeting here. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
So we will be adjourned. We'd like to take this opportunity to, on behalf of the entire board, happy holidays to everyone. Happy holidays.